torches of Sparta burned bright that night, casting long shadows across the marble avenues. Laughter and song echoed through the halls of the city's elite as Ephor Cleandridas basked in the triumph of his latest conquest. A warrior of renown, a statesman of cunning, he was untouchable. Seated at the head of a grand banquet table, Cleandridas raised his cup, the golden rim gleaming in the firelight. "To Sparta!" he roared, his voice thick with pride. "Another city bends the knee, and our fields will be fed with the spoils of our victory." The warriors around him cheered, slamming their fists against the table. One, a grizzled veteran named Lykon, grinned. "They barely put up a fight, Cleandridas. It is as you said, the world belongs to Sparta." "And soon," another added, "our dominion will stretch beyond the Peloponnesus. The Ephors are wise, our warriors unmatched. The gods have blessed us." Cleandridas smirked, reclining in his seat. "The gods bless the strong, and Sparta will endure for 1,000 generations." The revelry had left his steps unsteady as he returned to his grand estate in the city centre. Gilded pillars stood sentinel at his doorway, the spoils of war adorning his halls. Servants bowed as he dismissed them with a wave. He was invincible, a god amongst men. As Cleandridas retired to his chambers, the warm glow of the torches began to flicker, bending unnaturally as if recoiling from an unseen force. A whisper of motion slithered through the still air, the very darkness itself shifting like a living thing. The shadows stretched, coalescing into something more than mere absence of light. And then they struck. A whisper of motion, a flicker of steel. Cleandridas spun, instinct warring with intoxication. He reached for his shield, raising it just in time to deflect a glancing blow. A dagger sliced through the air, its wielder unseen. He lashed out blindly, but his attacker was faster, colder, unyielding. A sudden, sharp pain bloomed in his ribs. He staggered, gasping. The blade found its mark again, and again. As the light faded from his eyes, he felt it. The searing cut of a dagger carving a symbol into his chest. Etched was a crude yet deliberate engraving of an eclipsed sun, its rays clawing outward like stretched talons. The storm rolled in from the sea, thick and black, blotting out the moonlight. It was an ill omen. But for Nikarkhos, a helot bound to the soil of Sparta, every night was shadowed in darkness, omen or not. The helots were the enslaved underclass of Spartan society, bound to the land and forced into servitude by their Spartan overlords. Unlike traditional chattel slaves, helots were tied to their ancestral lands and required to provide the Spartan state with agricultural labor, ensuring the survival of the warrior elite. Though essential to Sparta's economy and sustenance, helots were treated with ruthless cruelty and oppression. Each year, the Spartan ephors, the ruling magistrates, ritually declared war on the helots, allowing their warriors to kill them without legal consequence. The Krypteia, a force of young Spartan warriors, was tasked with terrorizing and culling the strongest and most rebellious among them. The purpose of the Krypteia was twofold: to train elite Spartan warriors in stealth and assassination, and to suppress any potential helot uprisings. It was not uncommon for Krypteia agents to infiltrate helot villages under the cover of darkness, executing those who showed signs of leadership or defiance. The gentle moonlight betrayed what was to come. Tonight, blood would be shed. The Krypteia loomed near. They descended in silence, their daggers gleaming like fangs in the storm's flickering light. Young Spartan warriors, trained in cruelty, prowled the farmlands, hunting the strongest and boldest among the helots. Tonight they came for Nikarkhos's father, but Nikarkhos would not stand idly by. With a cry of fury, he lunged at the first Spartan, grabbing a farming sickle from the wall. The blade flashed in the dim light, slicing a shallow cut across the warrior's arm. The Spartan stumbled back, surprised, before regaining his composure. Another soldier advanced, his spear darting like a viper. Nikarkhos twisted, avoiding the initial thrust, and drove his sickle toward the warrior's side. He was fast, but they were faster. A boot crashed into his stomach, knocking the breath from his lungs. He collapsed to the floor as another Spartan struck him across the face with the shaft of his spear. Dizzy, blood filling his mouth, Nikarkhos tried to rise, only to watch, helpless, as his father was cut down before him. His mother, screaming, was silenced just as swiftly. His younger brother, barely 12, ran before they caught him. But one of the Spartans, a lanky youth with sharp, pitiless eyes, speared the boy through the back, leaving him sprawled in the dirt. Nikarkhos, bound by the weight of his pain, did not move. He wanted to fight, to kill them all. But his body betrayed him, battered and broken. One of the Spartans raised his dagger, prepared to finish him off. A distant horn sounded. A call from the city. The Spartan hesitated, then sneered. "Another time, Helot." They left him there, bruised and bloodied, among the dead. When they were gone, Nikarkhos knelt beside the bodies. His hands shook as he closed their eyes. His father's blood pooled around his knees, warm despite the chill of the night. His mother's fingers were still curled, frozen in their final, desperate grasp for survival. He would not join them. He would not be just another dead Helot. He would fight. They came for him the next day, but not the Spartans. A hooded figure slipped through the olive grove where Nikarkhos had hidden, silent as the wind. Before Nikarkhos could react, a blade flashed toward his throat. He twisted, caught the assailant's wrist, but found himself outmatched in speed and precision. Within a heartbeat, the figure had spun behind him, an arm wrapped around his neck. "Good," the voice whispered. "You have strength. You will need more." The arm released him, and Nikarkhos stumbled, turning to face his attacker. The hood fell back, revealing a man with weathered skin and sharp, assessing eyes. "I saw what you did," the man said. "You did not flee. You did not weep." Nikarkhos clenched his fists. "Who are you?" The man gave a small, knowing smile. "We are what the Spartans fear in the dark. Join us." The next weeks passed in a blur of motion, pain, and whispers. They trained in the depths of the Daggers mountains, in the crevices where even the Spartans dared not tread. The group, no more than a dozen, moved like wraiths, their steps light, their presence unknown, until they chose to reveal themselves. They called themselves Nixidos, the children of night. Nikarkhos learned to move in silence, to wield daggers with the swiftness of a striking snake, to vanish into the trees like morning mist. He learned to kill, not in open battle like the Spartans, but in the dark, where war was fought with whispers and death came unseen. His mentor, the man who had found him, Lykon, was relentless. He taught Nikarkhos not only how to fight, but why. "The Spartans believe us cattle," Lykon said one night, as they crouched on a ridge overlooking a Spartan garrison. "But cattle do not rise up. Cattle do not slit their masters' throats while they sleep." Nikarkhos listened, his grip tightening on the dagger at his belt. "One day," Lykon continued, "we will strike. Not as warriors, as shadows. The ephors sit on their thrones, blind to what lies beneath them. We will show them the cost of their cruelty." Nikarkhos nodded. He had made his decision the night his family died. He would see Sparta burn. But first, he had to prove himself. The final test came on the night of the winter solstice. The Nixidos gathered in a ruined temple, their faces hidden behind cloth masks. Lykon stood before them, his voice low and commanding. "There is a man," he said, "a Spartan patrol leader. He has slaughtered our people with impunity. Tonight he dies." He turned to Nikarkhos. "By your hand." They slipped through the city unseen, moving between the alleys and walls like wraiths. The Spartan, a burly man with the face of a butcher, slept within his barracks, surrounded by his comrades. Nikarkhos slipped into the barracks under the cover of moonlight, his breath shallow, his heartbeat steady. He waited, hidden in the rafters, until the oil lamps burned low. The air was thick with the scent of sweat and oil, the rhythmic snores of the sleeping Spartans masking the near-silent whisper of his footsteps. He found his target sprawled on a cot, chest rising and falling in slumber. Then, with the silence he had spent weeks perfecting, he struck quickly, a dagger to the throat, sharp and precise. Blood pooled as the man spasmed, but Nikarkhos was already in motion. One of the Spartans stirred, mumbling in his sleep. Nikarkhos pressed himself into the shadows, moving with calculated grace. A thin trickle of blood had splattered onto the stone floor, and he knew he had mere moments before suspicion arose. A quick flick of his wrist, and a small clay jar of smouldering coals rolled beneath a nearby cot. Smoke curled upward, slow but insidious. The soldier nearest to it coughed in his sleep, turning away. Within seconds, the soft haze gave the room an oppressive weight, thick enough to delay rousing minds. Nikarkhos took his chance. He slipped back into the night, vanishing into the labyrinth of alleyways before the first alarm could be sounded. He did not breathe until he was once more beneath the night sky. Lykon watched him as they retreated into the hills. "You hesitated," he noted. Nikarkhos swallowed. "Only for a moment." Lykon nodded. "Then you are ready."